As if there wasn't anything else I could say about the UV button, I went and bought another one. So I took advantage of the Black Friday sale in November, and yes, I know it's January, and I picked up an aluminum button to complement my stainless one, and to see if my holsters function the same between the two different materials and finishes. Most of the time they do, but I wanted to make sure. So my stainless steel UV button was from the first run, and I ordered it within 5 minutes of the initial release. So it was as new as it could possibly be. And so the initial reviews and beta testing began. So while the people at Ultraview insisted that we weren't technically beta testing the button, let's face it, we were, because that's kind of how that works. Whenever you get into something with major production, you're going to have things come up and aren't going to quite pan out the way the initial prototypes were performing. So there were a few issues people, including myself, highlighted with the initial design, and apparently they were listening to us and took some of that feedback and made a few tweaks and improvements. And that's kind of nice to see, because there are certain companies that don't always do that. And so yeah, I'm going to move down to a tabletop view so then we can take a look at what they fixed and what they didn't. Alright, so before I get started, I'm just going to get this out of the way. I ended up, the reason I have this is I cut up a hunting bracket. Well, I purchased a 2 and a 4 finger hunting bracket and cut the top off and the thumb pad, because obviously we're not going to use that, in order to get a hold of this piece. So I wanted to get ahead of things and got the 2 and the 4 finger versions of my holsters ready to go for whenever Ultraview actually releases the extensions for these. I really hope they don't charge us $40 for this little piece, but who knows. Should probably have been in a kit, but that's a whole issue that I discussed on the previous videos on it. So one of several issues that I had with the initial run when I gave it a really close look is the first run of UV buttons. There are tooling marks on the exposed stainless pieces, so the trigger stem over here and then the cocking button. On the newer run that I got during the Black Friday sale, the tooling marks on them are still there. You can't really see them on camera, but they are way less pronounced. So they spent a little more time finishing or tumbling, burnishing, etc. to the exposed parts on the newer buttons than they did on the first run, which I figured they had more time to do it anyway, which is a plus. So they gave it a little extra attention. So one big concern that the first run of UV buttons had was the trigger stem has play in it. So it kind of wiggles back and forth inside inside the opening in the casing. The newer versions, or the newer runs, specifically the one I got from the Black Friday sale, the trigger stem is significantly stiffer. Like they either increase the size of this piece or they decrease the dimensions of the hole, but there is no play anymore in this piece, which is a big plus. It feels significantly more high end without that issue. So kudos to them for actually paying attention to everyone and listening to their concerns and making an adjustment as needed. I'm probably going to be shooting this one more than this one because of that, because you can actually, when you have it set up to minimal travel, not minimal travel, to maximum travel, actually, this wiggle is a lot more noticeable. So kudos to them for making an adjustment and listening to their customers. Another issue that I noticed was with the Cerakoting. They switched from anodized, at least on the aluminum pieces being the body of the aluminum release and the finger extensions, not including the stainless ones, but they switched from anodizing to Cerakoting. And what I noticed is some of the pieces, which this is aluminum as well, they missed the spot on the inside of the stem here where it clamps to the trigger stem. Now Cerakote is it's not supposed to be a fragile coating. Like, it's supposed to be able to take a good amount of abrasion before it starts to slough off, and so they pretty much just missed coating this part. Maybe it was clamped to something. They got it on the inside here, but the actual part where it contacts the stainless, you can see it right. You can see a little bit of white right there. This is the new one, so this is not something that they fixed. So there are still some issues with the coater. So whoever's doing your Cerakote Ultraview, you need to have them take a look, because that kind of cheapens the look of these things. It was also missing in the hole here for the finger extension. I think I have a looser. The original one is loose. So if you look at it, yeah, you can see the shiny aluminum there. That's not supposed to be bare. It should be gray, just like the rest of this. So that's something that they haven't quite fixed. It might just be that these parts are from the previous run, but that's still something I would like to see improved. Another issue that was brought up was the force and travel set screws were walking themselves loose. Now, Ultraview is apparently allergic to the concept of locking and tensioning set screws, because they don't have them on any of their items. They don't have it on the hinges, and they don't have it on the buttons. So what I think they may have done, the tension screw on my newer UV button appears to be stiffer than my older one, so they may have put a stiffer spring in there as a solution to adding a little additional tension to the set screws and keeping them from walking out. The other solution that some people have been doing, they've been opening up these cases, because you can't access the set screws from the outside because they didn't thread these holes completely. I think they did that on purpose to make it harder to tamper with, and to maybe reduce the number of warranty claims that you get as a result of people opening things up and doing that. But in the process, people have had to open these up, add Loctite to their set screws, and then put them back together. So I haven't had an issue with that, because mine is set up where the tension is at minimum and the travel is at maximum, because I kind of have it set up kind of like a target trigger, where I actually have to have travel in order to get it to go off. And I found that's made it easier for me to execute my shot with a thumb release a little bit easier. I don't have that target panic anxiety of being right on the wall. So another issue that people highlighted was the interface between the finger extension and the release body has a gap right here that is a little bit deeper, wider, however you want to describe it, than it should be. On this one, it doesn't look too bad, and interestingly enough, on the pieces that are made for the UV hinge actually marry up more closely to the release body on the UV button than the pieces that were actually made for it. So that was interesting. So whatever they did in terms of tolerances, they kind of loosened up a little bit here, and still kind of something that they should fix. That little gap is a little more pronounced than it should be, and I can still kind of get my fingernail in there or see light through it, which is not something that I particularly like. So they fixed a few things, and they didn't fix a few other things. So I guess it's a matter of deciding, a spectrum or priority list in terms of what you want to fix versus what you want to leave for later. So in summation, the two biggest things I think they fixed, and a few other little tweaks are still need to be worked on. The two biggest ones for me were the fit and finish of the components. So removing or minimizing the tooling marks on the exposed stainless pieces, makes it look like a $300 release, along with taking care of the play in the trigger stem, because and not only did they take care of it, but they just kind of eliminated it entirely. Because, like, for example, there are other releases, like this is a hotshot hookup, and doesn't have a whole lot of play, but it is there. You can see it there. And the purpose of that, obviously, is to, make the system reliable, but at the same time, it's still there. Whereas this release is $100 cheaper than this. Well, it's $100 cheaper than this one, and like $65 cheaper than this one. So So it's good that they're kind of making little tweaks in order to make it feel like it costs, or make it feel like, well, match up with its cost, let's say. And I think that's good. It seems like they're actually listening to their customers and trying to make little tweaks and things to improve their product. So I think that covers it. I'm going to stop here before I screw up and flub any more lines or talk anymore or babble anymore. So if you like what I'm doing, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments section, and I will try to answer them as soon as I can. And for everyone listening, take care, stay safe, and happy hunting. So the first point, one of the points of contention that I had with this release is that there were tooling,